I'm a medical doctor, and in this video I'm going to share with you 3 scientific sleep strategies. I'm also going to share with you one profound concept that when you understand it, it will change your mindset when it comes to sleep. To help you, I've cherry-picked the world's best advice from sleep experts. In total, these 4 strategies, if maintained and applied consistently to your life, will no doubt transform the way you sleep into something that's more healthy. But please do stick around for point 4. I think this profound concept is something everyone needs to understand. So the first sleep strategy is to have a consistent sleep schedule. To explain why a consistent sleep schedule is really important, we'll first look at the idea of the circadian clock. The circadian clock, often referred to as the circadian rhythm, is your body's internal 24-hour timer, which essentially cycles between periods of sleepiness and alertness at hopefully regular intervals. Think of it as your body's master clock. Governed by an area in the brain known as the suprachiasmatic nucleus, it responds to light and essentially rampens up or winds down your body's functions. With that in mind, maintaining a regular sleep schedule synchronizes your body's internal clock with the external clock, which is day and night. When our sleep schedule is consistent, essentially what happens is that the brain knows when to release certain hormones such as melatonin that increases our feeling of sleepiness at the right time. On the flip side, when we have a very irregular sleep pattern, then our body is quite confused. It doesn't know when to really release these hormones, and therefore you're not going to be in a state where your body is ready to sleep. So what happens here is you end up having really groggy night's sleep. You don't feel energized after waking up, and overall you just feel like tired all the time. Besides sleeping at the same time and waking up at the same time every day, another way to improve our circadian rhythm, as Professor Russell Foster explains, is actually to expose ourselves to natural light when we wake up. When you first wake up in the morning, if you expose yourself to natural sunlight, maybe by stepping into the garden, onto a balcony, or even opening your windows and looking outside, the body will realize that it's daytime and therefore releases and maintains a balance of hormones that keeps you alert and awake and also makes you feel energized. Similarly, at night, this also means cutting down on light and therefore highlighting to your body that it's now nighttime. So after a certain point in the evening, you might want to cut out all artificial light and just focus on sort of soft lights like candles, and particularly the half an hour or an hour before bed, try to cut out phone screens and Kindles, any sort of artificial light that will alert to your brain that it's still sort of daytime and therefore keeps you awake and alert even though it's actually nighttime and your body should be preparing for sleep. This brings us on nicely to point number 2, which is all about optimizing our sleep environment. Have you ever tried to sleep in a really bright room? Or can you recall a time when you felt energized after sleeping in a really hot room? Or maybe you have a memory of a time that you had a really good night's sleep in a really noisy environment. You see the point I'm trying to make here. Everything about your environment is critical to how you sleep. Studies have shown, and in both books authors explain, that your body is naturally put into a sleep mode when the temperature is lowered. So 65 Fahrenheit or 18 to 20 degrees is the recommended temperature for optimal sleep. And so by cooling your room, your environment, you can actually increase your likelihood of falling asleep faster and having a healthy night's sleep. For this reason alone, I invested in a fan and I use it religiously throughout the summer and also a lot of nights in the winter as well. I like to keep the room nice and cool, and I've actually seen a huge difference in my ability to fall asleep. Similar to this, we should also look at light and noise and look into ways to cut this down as much as possible. So with light, we can buy things such as blackout blinds or curtains, lock any doors, and just really block out any light in your room. I think it's also fairly safe to say that most of us will spend a lot of money on takeaways, clothes, shopping, that kind of stuff. But when it comes to sleep, I'm not sure that most of us will spend the same amount of money as liberally. But I would really think that if most of us will sleep for about 1/3 of our entire life, it seems like a fair return on investment. Before we go on to points number 3 and 4, if you like what you're seeing, please leave a like down below. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. Please do consider subscribing. Next, we need to strategize our diet for optimal sleep. There's a famous saying, you are what you eat. When it comes to sleep, I think you sleep how you eat. concept. Firstly, addressing food, we should try to avoid heavy meals or sugary snacks just before we're about to go to bed. In both books, they recommend at least leaving a few hours between your last meal and when you intend to go to bed. This is how I would think about it. If you consider like a workout or a really busy day, what would you do? You'd either have a really energizing snack for your workout, or you'd have a very carb heavy meal at the start of your day. So why would you do the same just before you're about to sleep? Secondly, let's talk about drinks. You know I'm going to talk to you about caffeine, but I know that caffeine is going to keep you awake and prevent you from falling asleep. I'm not going to tell you anything new there, but what I am going to tell you is a bit of advice that I learnt from the book Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. This idea of the caffeine's half-life and how we can leverage that to understand when we should stop drinking coffee or anything with caffeine. Essentially, what Matthew Walker says is that caffeine has a half-life of 5 hours. What this means is that in your body, it takes roughly 5 hours for half the coffee that you've drank to exit the body. So if you have a coffee at 1 p.m, at 6 p.m, roughly 50% of that coffee is still active in your brain and around your body. So what this really means is that for the average person, it takes roughly 10 hours for most of that caffeine to exit the body. With that in mind, it should kind of suggest to you that you should stop drinking caffeine roughly 10 hours before you intend to sleep. Now, for me, through experimenting, I've identified that 2 p.m. is my cutoff. Now, the thing with caffeine is it doesn't actually make you more energized or awake or alert. It just mimics that idea. And therefore, at night, when you're really trying to sleep and every other inch of your body is super tired and you're really wanting to sleep and you can't sleep, it's just the caffeine that's blocking you. So point number 4, this is what I've asked you to wait around for. And this is the profound concept that changed everything for me. Maybe like you, I was ignorant to the importance of sleep in my earlier years, especially growing up in my teens and my early university years. I fell into this hustle culture sort of trap. I was watching these videos where people would say, you know, you need to sleep 4 hours, 5 hours a day, and you need to hustle, you need to grind, and that's how you become a millionaire. That's how you become a billionaire and really successful. And you know, so I started following this advice, and in periods of my life, I have gone through 6 months up to a year where I'd literally just sleep like 4 hours a day. This definitely impacted every other aspect of my life. I felt constantly groggy. I felt really tired all the time. There'll be lectures at university where I'd be falling asleep halfway through it because I just couldn't maintain opening my eyes and just sort of just being alert. Definitely had impact on my health, my weight, everything really just sort of declines when you neglect your sleep. So what made me change? I think at the age of around 21, I found myself with this book called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, and I read it twice because it was really good. And the book contains so many concepts about the importance of sleep, and also so many concepts around what sleep deprivation could do to your body. A lot of what Dr. Matthew Walker says in his book around sleep deprivation increasing your chances of developing things like diabetes, cancer, cardiovascular disease, and even Alzheimer's is pretty true. I think lots of studies have been done and lots of evidence is there to suggest that does definitely increase your chances. Now, there might not be a causal factor, and there may be other confounding factors as well. And so when I thought about that, it made me realize absolutely none of this hustle and grind culture is worth developing diabetes, is worth increasing my chances of having a heart attack or a stroke or having Alzheimer's disease later in life. You may not have the same amount of time and you may not read the book. So I'm going to ask you to ask yourself these 3 questions, and then maybe it will change your relationship with sleep. Am I willing to trade my future health and well-being for current gains or achievements? Do I value productivity and achievement over my physical and mental health? What am I willing to change or give up to ensure a more well-balanced and healthier life? There are only 24 hours a day, and so you need to decide what's important for you. If you decide sleep is important for you, consider how you can build a consistent sleep schedule, how you could optimize your sleep environment, and lastly, also consider how your diet impacts your sleep and therefore what changes you can make so that you sleep better. If you enjoyed this video and if your aim is to build healthier habits in all avenues of life, so that includes your careers, your finance and lifestyle, please do consider subscribing to my channel where I share my personal journey as a doctor. As always, stay safe, stay happy, and I'll see you in the next one.